Hello and welcome. My name is TyrionLanstr. Well, folks, I'm really excited because in the newest Kingdom celebration, we were fortunate enough to get a discount. That's right, folks. All of the dragon skills, the red ancient skills, are on discount. What would normally be 300 fragments costs just 250. What would normally be 400 is 330, and what would normally be 100 is on sale for 80. But this begs the question, at this point in the game, what exactly should you be buying of them? Basically, what I've tried to do for this video is I've broken us down into a few categories. I've kind of got the universal or any castle, doesn't really matter what your strategy is, it'll be good for anyone. Then I have the if it's specific to weakness attack setups, and that's going to be, of course, utilizing the tear, weakness, and assist skills. Whether you are doing a female setup, which would be including the follow-up and the strong assault skill, and then lastly, if you're doing a bleed setup, which would be just the bleed and the flame skill. So that's the breakdown of what it's going to be. I know I just did those quickly. Don't worry, I'm going to actually break it down a lot more. But let's go ahead and look at a note to just put it all together. So here on the side we can see this broken down, and I've kind of got them all ranked in order of what I would prioritize, and I'm going to explain to you why. So starting at the top with the weakness skills. As I said, we're looking at the tear skill, the weakness skill, and the assist skill. And I kind of have a sort of the assist skill because it kind of helps weakness setups, but it's less dependent on a weakness setup. To be totally clear with you, you should not buy either the dragon tear or the dragon weakness skill if you do not have Jamie fully awakened. If you're not using a weakness setup, they are literally never going to do anything for you. It's not going to be helpful. It is dependent that you have weakness attacks going to use those skills. In general, you're going to notice that I pretty much always put the tear like skill. It's the best. Basically what it will do is it will give you a 60% chance of summoning your dragon to launch a rend attack or some other form of dragon attack. It's got 180% damage at full stacks, and it does that every single 10 weakness attacks. Now this is really good because if you think about how frequently you should be triggering weakness attacks, if you have 5 lines and you have 3 sets of infantry, cavalry, and spear, you got full weakness setup going, in theory you should be getting one of these attacks off pretty much every round. Now it can trigger up to 10 times, but if you're getting a full 10 dragon skills off, you're going to be doing a lot of damage, and it's going to be very, very good. Now, I'll admit that the next skill, the weakness skill, I think that this one, to me, I think that it could be very strong, but I'm going to explain why I think it's not quite as good as the tear skill. So the dragon weakness skill, basically every 10 weakness attacks, it's going to lower the target lineup by 15%. So similarly, it's going to have a strong effect of destroying that weakness lineup even quicker by lowering their health every 10 weakness attacks. It can only lower them up to 60%, but 60% is a pretty considerable amount if you think about it. So definitely see some merit to it, but like I said, I just think the tier is a little bit better, getting a chance to do extra damage, and also it gives the opportunity to synergize with other things that depend on your dragon attacking, like specifically the dragon assist skill, our third category here. Whenever your dragon launches a follow-up attack or some sort of attack at all, it's going to potentially have a 40% chance to heal 12% of the allied lineup with the highest proportion of losses. Generally, I put this in the weakness skill because it's nice that it synergizes with healing, and then you get weakness attacks going. Potentially could be a good way to get some bonus weakness attacks in early. But I will mention that I think that once you have your weakness attacks going, it's not going to really do anything. But the potential to get a 12% heal, definitely not bad. Just I don't think particularly good either. I don't think that it's going to make an appreciable difference on how much damage you're dealing or how much damage you're feeling. By the way, I'll just mention I'm adding on the right-hand side of each of these whether they give total attack reduction, total attack, or some other stat such as like total defense or total health. So just that's what that parentheses is for on the side. Okay, so we've gone through weakness and why it's that way. I'm going to go through the others a little bit quicker, but female, again, the follow-up skill is my top tier get. Kind of the same premise as the tier skill, where after every army active that you use, there's a 20% chance that you're going to use a dragon follow-up skill, same kind of damage coefficient of 180%. And again, this one I think is probably the strongest out of all of the, dragon, first tier skills based on weakness, female, or bleed. Mostly because there's no max. It doesn't ever max out. You can use this as many times as your troops actually pull off a follow-up attack, or a army attack, and then your dragon does their follow-up. There's no like, it can only hit 10 times like we saw with the tier skill. So that's a pretty big difference, and I do think makes it a little bit stronger. Definitely the top choice for female. Now, the next up was the Strong Assault skill, and this one's definitely good. It just kind of gives a overall buff to the damage that's dealt by your commander's active army skill. I compare this a lot to the weakness skill. Pretty similar in premise, just making that skill, that central part of your setup, a little bit stronger. Now, last but not least, we go to our bleed setup, and again, the bleed setup, we're going to lead off with the flame skill. This is, again, pretty analogous to the tear skill or the follow-up skill. Every 10 additional attacks, and an additional attack means either Sonara or Kravis's awakening. Whenever it triggers 10 additional attacks, then there's a 40% chance that you're going to get that dragon to do some sort of attack. Again, 180%, same thing as the other two. Again, this one is limited to 10 times, so I see this very, very analogous to the tear skill. Maybe arguments could be heard that it's a little bit stronger just because I think that you're going to get 10 of those additional attacks off, probably quicker than you're going to get the weakness attacks going, but on the other hand, you can only get 10 times, so it may not end up making all that much of a difference in the long run. Ideally, if you're maxing them both out, it's going to be the same thing since they're both maxed at 10 triggers. Still, 10 triggers is a lot. That's why I do have it in the first category. The bleed skill here is kind of very similar to the strong assault skill, and then it's just buffing the bleed attack. It just gives you bonus damage for bleed, which is pretty much always a good thing, but I do think that I put it in that second category just because I think that getting the extra attacks off to me feels better. Okay, so the bigger category here are kind of the any different skills. So this is, again, reinforcement all the way down through the rest of them, skipping over the individual troop types at infantry, spearmen, and cavalry. Okay, so going back to our note, I have in order reinforcement top. This is the most expensive one, probably not too surprising. Getting extra troops provides a buffer for you, more troops to kill your enemy. It's just all around great. Reroute, kind of same thing. Giving your opponent fewer troops can be really good, especially if you ever think about when you're attacking someone when they're defending with a full 15 million troops. You could reroute away 1.5 million troops. That's a lot to reroute away. Definitely helpful, but make sure you're careful with reroute. There are certain situations where you want to just kill someone entirely and you don't want to reroute away troops, so you just should be careful with that. Pretty much the rest of these I think are a little bit situational. I think that the Legion damage is pretty much universally good, always good to be killing more troops. You'll get more merit, you'll get more tokens, whatever else you need. Good to kill more actual enemy troops. And then similarly counter, just dealing more counter damage is always good. You're going to get more damage in. And then I kind of think by that contrast, the anti-counter is kind of a little bit worse than the counter, but kind of same vein. I will admit that in general, things that do more damage to your opponent tend to be more valuable than things that do less damage to you. That's why counter's better than anti-counter, Legion damage better than Legion survival, which is the kind of flip with the casualty rates, and kind of all that, reinforcement better than reroute. You'll kind of get that gist. I think reinforce instead of reroute, is kind of the it may sound weird because reinforce is affecting you, reroute is affecting your enemy, but by giving yourself more troops, it's going to allow you to do more damage. So again, more damage, better. Less damage for you, worse. Getting into kind of the last little bit, the army attack, army healing, and army defense, you get it. It's just giving your overall stats a little buff. Nothing too crazy there. I would say probably not worth investing in. Just as a 300 fragments, it's a lot to get one of those things that you already pretty much have, but more stats are more stats. Definitely nothing to complain about. I do think that the Legion survival and Legion healing are two of the worst, just in terms of lowering your own casualty rate or giving yourself a chance to heal all of your wounded troops. To me, is just really not very helpful. Also, I'll add that it's only giving total health or total defense, which I don't like. I'd rather get the total attack stats. But yeah, very rarely do I find in this game that having all of your troops wounded or having too many of them killed is a huge problem. I can train more troops. What I really need are tokens and other things to buff my stats. And I want to deal more damage, and I don't really care that much about my own troops dying. Maybe that makes me a bad leader, but that's just the reality, is that it's not too big of a deal if you need to train more troops, you need to heal some troops. That's just not the end of the day. There are other things that are a lot better. So I left the Legion building skill at 8 with a little asterisk, because clearly if you are a rally lead for your alliance, it is extremely valuable and should be placed much higher on this list. I put it down low because if you're not a rally leader, it's pretty much useless to you. If you're not soloing, you're never going to use it. So keep that in mind. It's kind of depending on what your usage is. But I think this does provide a good general sense of when you should be getting stuff. And of course, the individual troop types are just specific to your account. Feel free to get one if you want it, but it's not terribly different than just getting a gold all the way to level 9. So I would probably avoid those until you've gotten everything else that you could possibly want. But again, I hope this was helpful to all of you. I hope you understand what you should be buying, especially now you've got a discount. It's a great chance to go out and buy something. I'm definitely planning on getting one. I think that for me, I'm probably going to go ahead and get the Dragon follow-up. Like I said before, I think it's probably the strongest of those, kind of the 3 top categories, because it's not capped, and I already have my weakness skills going, and I already got reroute and reinforcement, so I think follow-up is going to be the next natural one for me. Just to prove it to you all, I'm going to go ahead and buy it right now. So there you go, got it, committing to it. If I believe in it, hopefully you do too. But hopefully, guys, you learned something, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one. But until next time, my name is TyrionLanstr, and I'll see you then.